Holy shit. Guys, Capcom is to be bought out. Now, this isn't speculation. This isn't just rumors. This is real. Today, apparently the investors voted on whether or not they could keep the... Oh, what's the terminology? But basically, it's where there's the safety net where Capcom would keep 51% of the company, and then 49% could be bought out by investors. But that way, Capcom would still always be in control. Well, they changed that. That's no longer their policy. That's no longer their business practice. So basically, a company could potentially go and buy out Capcom. And quite frankly, after what happened with, like, even when THQ, like, dropped out and everyone acquired all their franchises, there's a huge possibility of something happening here. But the thing is, if a company buys Capcom, if they invest, if they're the ones who invest in Capcom, that would mean that only one company can get every franchise. Only one company can take everything they have. And a lot of people are saying that they want Nintendo to. Now, is that going to happen? Well, I think that Nintendo definitely would have an interest in buying Capcom. I'm not sure what the probability would be. There's no real way to estimate that. But I have to say, if there's any company that should buy Capcom, it is Nintendo. Everything Capcom makes would benefit Nintendo tremendously. I went back and looked at a lot of their franchises. And I found 21 franchises, right? They're bigger franchises. They're more well-known ones. Let me list these off for you guys. And I'm going to go maybe not in order, but I'll list off the ones that make sense on Nintendo platforms. And then I'll talk about the ones that would basically widen their appeals to console. So the ones that would benefit Nintendo that make complete sense. First one being Ace Attorney. There's already the DS series. Ace Attorney is basically Phoenix Wright, for those of you who don't know. Obviously Nintendo. Bionic Commando, 2D platformer. Obviously would work with Nintendo, and it actually got its start on Nintendo. Breath of Fire, just another RPG series. Let's see, what else? Final Fight, Nintendo, obviously, beat 'em up. Ghosts and Goblins, that would be a phenomenal series for Nintendo to acquire. Where Nintendo loves making their 2D side-scrollers. It's just a new face to add to the roster, and even the main character, I don't know what his name is. I've seen him so many times. I've played the games, I just don't know the name. But basically, like the comic book style looking knights guy, Sir something, I think. He would be such an awesome... He looks like a Nintendo character. He would fit so well in the Nintendo world. So that would be a phenomenal series to have, like Ghouls and Ghosts, Ghosts and Goblins, whatever you want to call it. That would be a tremendous series. The other one, the huge hit that everyone's talking about, Mega Man. If Mega Man becomes a Nintendo IP, who's to say that Mega Man Legends 3 won't come back? Who's to say that they won't make tons of Mega Man games? Because they obviously will. That is an absolute Nintendo franchise. That would absolutely... I don't know how successful it would be, but that would absolutely make the fanboys go ballistic. They would love it. And then there's also Monster Hunter, which is obviously that. I mean, that's basically already a Nintendo franchise, but that would basically kill the PlayStation Vita in Japan. If Nintendo owns it, if they have exclusive rights to Monster Hunter, everything else is gone for the Vita. Gone. That's it. The other one is Okami. Now, some people might see this more as a Sony game, or, well, depending on how you look at Sony or Nintendo. I definitely view it more as a Nintendo franchise, where in terms of gameplay, it's very similar to Zelda. Not only that, but it wouldn't surprise me if like Nintendo were to acquire Capcom and they have Okami as a franchise. I wouldn't be surprised if they had like Platinum Games make the next sequel to Okami. So I mean, there's some cool stuff like that that I think would really benefit them. And Okami did the best on the DS and the Wii. Better than the PS2, better than the PS3. So that would be a huge hit for them. More so for the fans. It's not a huge selling franchise, but I think that might have to do with Capcom. But if Nintendo acquires it and treats it their own way, I think that it could be something else. The next one is Power Stone. Power Stone, for those who haven't played it, it's basically like Smash Bros, but it's like a 3D Smash Bros brawler type of game. That's why I think it would work well. It's definitely a local multiplayer-centric game, and it also has online multiplayer when it was out on the Dreamcast. So that would be a huge online hit for Nintendo. Now, this is the one. This is the sole reason that would make buying Capcom worth it alone. That is Resident Evil. Which is absolutely, I consider that a huge like Nintendo-centric series, and some people are going to disagree and say, well, no, it's more of a Sony. I would say it's both. Where it started out on Sony, you had Resident Evil 1, 2, but after that, that's where it really started to split off. Where there was 3 in Code Veronica, which were on multiple platforms, but then on the GameCube, every single Resident Evil was remade on the GameCube, and then 4 was exclusive for a large period of time. So Resident Evil has huge history on Nintendo. Not only that, but Resident Evil Revelations, that was exclusive at one point for the 3DS. And of course, I mean, guys, Resident Evil, if that was an exclusive series, I know tons of people. And trust me, I'm just I just graduated high school, so I know that crowd. I know what the younger audience wants. They will buy a Wii U for Resident Evil. Like, that is a huge AAA title. That is almost as big as the Halos, the Uncharted. That is the game Nintendo needs. That is the mature title. And if they can get it, many of the issues with the Wii U will cease to exist. So, huge one right there. Huge one. Next one is Steel Battalion. Not really a Nintendo-centric IP, but it would make such great use of the Wii U gamepad or 3DS touchscreen. Not too much I want to say, but that would be a huge title. The next one, Strider. I say this because, again, same reason why I said for Bionic Commando. It's 2D. It's a little bit more action-based. I think it would just be one of those games where it would really fit well on a Nintendo console, where they'd probably know what to do with it, where to take it. Will it be a download title type of thing, or would it be for retail? I don't know. It's hard to say, but it has potential, I guess, on Nintendo platforms. So, whatever. Next one, Beautiful Joe. What if that went back to Nintendo? That would be huge. I don't really have too much to say because it's obviously it's for the most part only been on Nintendo consoles. It's been exclusive for a period of time. So another one, this is sort of stretching it a little bit as a series because there's only one game, but that's Zack and Wiki, which was a Wii game. When it first came out, it demonstrated one of the best uses within the first couple of years of using the Wii with the motion controls. It's basically a puzzle-solving game where it's inspired by the traditional like PC adventure games, but then it's like really charming, has really charming characters, and if you look at them, they look like Nintendo characters. That would be a huge IP for them. They could really turn that into something else. And then the last reason, I've already mentioned the mature games, but now I want to talk about one thing real quick. Capcom is a huge developer for Nintendo. Capcom developed the Oracle games, the Legend of Zelda Oracle games, Minish Cap, and I mean, I'm not sure if they worked on any ports. I'm not sure if they made a Link. Well, what's it called? The Adventures of Link? No, not Adventure. No, the Four Swords. Those games. But they've developed Zelda games in the past. Not only that, but damn near perfect Zelda games. They are phenomenal. And if they acquire Capcom, does that mean that we'll have a developer dedicated to making like handheld Zelda games or top-down overhead Zelda games, or maybe even they can have two developers making 3D Zelda games? That would be something else. That would be huge, mind-blowing, in fact. So, I mean, that right there, I think everyone can agree with what I just said. All those games would be huge on Nintendo. But let me hear you can talk about what else could be added to the Nintendo roster. Now, this one's not as big, but it could potentially create some fandom. That is Darkstalkers, which is basically a fighting game, okay? So, but then the next one. This is another one where it's almost as big as Resident Evil, where this is one that will sell systems. This is one that people who own Wii U's will go to the platform to buy it and play it. That is Dead Rising. Guys, they would get Dead Rising. People bought Xbox Ones for that game. And it could possibly, from now on, be exclusive to, well, Nintendo. That would be mind-blowing. Okay, the next one. Devil May Cry. That's definitely much more of a Sony IP. So it would be very strange to see that on Nintendo. But there's a lot that Nintendo could do with Devil May Cry. Where they have Bayonetta 1 and 2 coming to their platform, and this would sort of mesh well with that audience. So it could potentially be good for Nintendo. If they do get it, though, I don't think they're really going to do anything with it. It sounds to me like an IP that they would sit on. But nonetheless, another big one. They're missing many genres, right? This is one genre that would fit their open world like RPG. That is Dragon's Dogma. That could be their introduction into the world of like Dragon Age, The Witcher, Skyrim. This would be such phenomenal and just honestly awesome competition. Where the first one did decently, right? But if Nintendo acquires it, that's going to create a huge, well, I guess install base, because people that buy Nintendo consoles don't typically have the other console, where most people who buy consoles, they'll buy one a generation. People that buy Nintendo ones haven't experienced a lot of those games, but this is their chance to do it. Obviously, if Nintendo gets behind it, Nintendo fans want to support Nintendo, they would get it. I think the title would be a huge hit for them. Okay, the next one is Lost Planet. That would work well. I don't think it would sell systems or anything, but that would be a nice... I think they would make it more like Monster Hunter, because that's basically what it is, where it's a more westernized Monster Hunter. I can see them... I don't know what they would do, really. I can see them changing the series a bit, making it more of a co-op experience, a much more multiplayer focused, maybe even competitive. That would be awesome. Well, the next one is Marvel vs. Capcom. Not too much to say, sort of what you'd expect. But there's one more to talk about. This is the one game that would for sure be a system seller to hundreds of thousands of people, which I can definitely see. This game is one of the biggest ever. That is Street Fighter. Guys, what if Nintendo acquires Street Fighter? Now, I'm going to go look at the sales, okay, of Street Fighter. Street Fighter 4, okay? How many copies do you think, just guess, how many copies do you think it's sold? The very first version of Street Fighter 4, sold just about 4 million copies. That's not including the other versions. That's not including the, Ultra Edition, Super Edition. But I mean, Street Fighter as a whole, through this entire generation, is sold 7.69 million copies. That is one series that would just save Nintendo. Resident Evil, Street Fighter, and Dead Rising would save Nintendo. That would make them the M-rated games they need. It would draw in the more mature audience. And honestly, I'm excited if this happens. Let's hope it does. Guys, I'm Knowing Navi. See you guys later.